In the Perspectrum podcast, we discuss controversial topics. Outside of this context, Michael and I are both working professionals. While doing the show, we are not acting as agents or representatives of our respective institutions, and none of the views that we express reflect the outlooks of our employers. So don't come to my office and throw toilet paper at me.
And I don't have an office, but don't come to my cube.
Welcome to the Perspectrum. I'm Nathan Seelove.
And I'm Michael Bloom.
And we have a super psyched up, exciting episode to share with you all this week. Oh my God, it happened.
It's true. We're so excited.
It happened. I mean, I just got to say, my father has already given us credit for this.
Of course. Our episode dropped mere hours before Biden announced that he was dropping out. So
coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, I think we solidly are on the hook for that. Well, we solidly get credit. If it goes badly, it's not us, guys. No,
it wasn't.
Okay, yeah. So if you have been hiding deep under a rock, on Sunday night, Biden decided to drop out of the 2024 presidential race and not be willing to accept the nomination from the Democratic Party, which is huge fucking news. Like, dude,
yeah.
I think you texted this to me, and I've been feeling this so much. It would be great if if one of these weeks we didn't have like 4 or 5 historic, never before seen events occur.
Yeah. No, I feel I feel like that scene from Shrek 2 where it's like I'm talking to 2024 and I'm like, for 5 minutes, could you not make history? For 5 minutes!
Yeah, seriously. Oh my God. It's literally like every 3 days. Like I just saw that AOC entered articles of impeachment for Alito and Thomas, and that's never happened. Well, I don't know if it never happened, but that's super fucking rare. It's like crazy. Things just keep happening.
Yeah, AOC did that. There was the attempted assassination.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten a chance to talk about that. Yeah,
we haven't even gotten there was the historically bad debate performance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Look, I know that this is a historical event that I literally asked for, but still, holy shit.
Yeah, no kidding.
So today we're going to talk, obviously our first segment is going to be about Joe Biden dropping out, Kamala Harris as the new candidate, and what that might mean. And then we are going to discuss JD Vance, who is the pick for Trump's vice president, who I feel like was chosen 3 years ago, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk about him yet because it feels like 3 years have passed.
Yeah, it feels forever ago that news came out. But we should definitely talk about him. He's going to be important right up until Election Day, at which point he won't be important anymore. So
hopefully he won't be important anymore.
Yeah, we gotta act as if we've already won. Cool. So on Sunday, Biden drops out. What this means then is that his Democratic delegates that are pledged to him in the Democratic convention are then freed up basically to vote as they prefer.
Yeah.
And so within a few hours of his announcement, Biden endorses Kamala Harris for president. And since then, her campaign has been absolutely out there fucking swinging, totally kicking ass. So and this is really encouraging. So when we were recommending for Biden to step aside and for probably Harris to be the nominee, I think we talked about this, a lot last week, but there were some risks. Harris, has never been at this point in a presidential campaign at the top of the ticket before. So somewhat untested. Can she really kick ass on the campaign trail like she needs to? The risk of Democratic infighting, this was something that I think Jerry really hammered home last week and was a real risk, is what if Democrats all kind of rush in, all potential nominees kind of rush in, vying for power, splitting up the ticket, not coming together and kind of making this a really chaotic and disputed convention despite having like no primary, no opportunity to really get to know these candidates, and we risk like a power grab. At the same time, like can Harris like shake off some of the policies of the Biden administration that led him to lose some popularity with his base and like really get that Democratic support? And also at the same time, like maybe just the risk of passing off the torch this close to the election is too great. But so far, literally 4 days in, like it feels like every single one of those risks has like totally not materialized. Like we are riding absolutely high right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, I think it's probably fair. I mean, it is definitely fair to refer to Kamala Harris as the presumptive nominee because at this point she has secured enough delegate endorsements to have a majority when the convention does come around. And here's the thing. Here's I wasn't too worried about a lot of things that Jerry brought up for several reasons. For one thing, I was pretty certain that Biden was going to turn around and endorse Harris. And the moment he did, it just felt like it couldn't be anybody else. Like, I know that he technically, he doesn't control the delegates, but I mean, at that point, I just don't see anything else happening because when you think about it, the delegates that were selected to choose Biden were also selected to choose Harris.
Yes.
Which basically, like, which kind of does make this the most democratic thing to do because Biden won the primary. Now, you know, you could make the argument that it was kind of a sham primary, that there weren't any real viable contenders to it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, he did win the primary.
But that's not a defect of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. People tried to run. Some people not very well. And like, I think one thing that we can get into talking about some of the Republican response. One of the things they keep harping on is like this like anti-democratic point. They're like, oh, the Democrats are like subbing in a candidate willy-nilly. They just picked the person and they shoved out Biden or whatever. This guy stepped down.
Yeah.
Like there's no process by which you can force someone to become president.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can pick Biden and we didn't. It's like we didn't have a choice to pick Biden.
Yeah.
And so like the rules here are being followed. And to your point, not only did Harris secure endorsements from enough delegates to be the presumptive nominee and get the nomination, she did that within like 24 hours of being like Monday evening. The next day, she had enough delegates to be the nominee. And like, I don't know, her campaign absolutely came out swinging for the fucking fences. Like by Tuesday night, so this is 2 days later, she had raised $126 million from 1.4 million people.
Most of which were from small dollar donations.
Yes, seriously. Literally, she got like about a $90 million war chest from Biden. She doubled that in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like this shit is crazy.
Yeah, people were enthusiastic about her. And look,
Yes.
I want to be clear about something.
Yeah.
In my ideal world, Biden never tried to rerun for president. We had a nice open primary and we got to choose somebody based on a nice range of candidates.
Yeah.
That would be my ideal world. And obviously Harris would have been one of those candidates. And would I have voted for her? Probably not. But it is clear at this point that number one, she is a much stronger candidate than Biden.
Absolutely.
And number two, she's someone that people are actually excited to choose. Like even people that have been critical about her in the past, people that have been critical about Biden in the past, are enthusiastic about her. When she announced that she was running, there was a spike in voter registration.
Which is, that's crazy. That's people that are like, I haven't even written down the information necessary to be part of this process. And when she announces that she's running, they're like, oh, fuck, I can vote, can I?
Yeah. Because like, look, I can understand where a lot of people are coming from when they think like, I don't want to vote for either of these guys. Like, one of them has a melting brain. The other one is a fucking psychopath. You know, they both, there is a lot of young people that are against what's going on in Gaza, which I wonder, I haven't seen the statistics in terms of the voter registration, but I'm wondering if a lot of those are younger voters that just weren't planning on voting because it's like, I mean, this guy's aiding and abetting a genocide. Trump has indicated support for what's going on in Israel and Gaza. So, like, why even bother? So I'm wondering if that might have something to do with it. And even kind of on that line, Harris is a great opportunity to potentially get some of those uncommitted voters, especially in Michigan. God damn it, we need those uncommitted voters in Michigan.
Totally.
That have been critical of the Biden administration's policy on Gaza and bring them back. Now, you might think, well, hold on, isn't she a part of the Biden administration? Yes, but there's actually a lot of internal reporting that has said that she has been behind the scenes actively trying to push the Biden administration to be more sympathetic towards Palestinians, to have a more humanitarian approach to it. She did not go to Netanyahu's speech in Congress, which she would have been expected to go as the vice president. She would have been expected to go. She did not go to it. Instead, she is meeting with him one-on-one to and the reporting says the reason why she's meeting with him one-on-one is to try to push for a ceasefire.
Yeah.
So look, she might not. I don't know if she's going to be everything we want on Gaza. Is she going to? Is her policy going to be, hey, you want some weapons? You don't get any fucking weapons if you're going to use them on civilians. Is that what she's going to do? I mean, that's what I'd love her to do. I don't know if that's what she's going to do, but either way, I think it's absolutely clear that she's going to be much better on the issue of Gaza than Biden, and definitely better than Trump.
Yeah, I think she's going to be better on a lot of issues than Biden. Like Biden thing is like Biden as a president, there was some opportunity there. Like you could like eventually convince this guy to go to make changes in policy. We saw that a number of times throughout his administration. Kamala's already further to the left than Biden was.
Yeah.
Is she Bernie? No. But she starts at a further left point and like is also open to reasoning and argument and stuff like that. So like we're already a step ahead in terms of policy. And to your point, stronger candidate, more likely to be able to beat Trump. And that is ultimately the first most important job of whoever is going to be the candidate for president. Yeah. And to your point, like just like we talked about, to your point about Gaza, whether or not kind of like Harris has been internally kind of working the strings in favor of, you know, saving people's lives and humanitarian, non-monstrosity, she has that like plausible deniability to be able to reach those voters. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like she has not been front and center on this. She's been part of the administration, but also like quiet about it because the vice president doesn't do a lot of just like public stump speeches about this stuff. And so the exact kind of things that we were talking about when we were talking about the potential strengths of her candidacy are reflected in some of the internal like campaign memos that we are starting to see for the Harris campaign. So Harris campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon released a memo talking about the like Harris's path to victory. And the things that she emphasized were kind of the same thread the needle type things that we were talking about, which is one, that she has the support of Biden's like 2020 base, which, you know, it makes sense. People that are still committed to vote to Biden are still committed to voting for the Biden administration, i.e. Harris. Like she's got some incumbency advantage there. Second is her ability to kind of expand the coalition. So we've seen Biden lose ground with, young black men, like minority voters, the Latino vote. She has some opportunity to gain those people, and also to appeal to undecided voters, like uncommitted people, never Trump folks that also thought Biden was too old. Like there's a lot of opportunity here and a lot of potential upside. And to the point where even in states that are not like typically part of like the blue wall, where there are much more swing states. We've got to do a lot more there. Like O'Malley Dillon, the campaign chair, is arguing that like North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada are kind of back in play with Harris at the top of the ticket, especially on the back of young voters and by appealing to minority voters in a way that gives Harris like multiple ways to kind of get the sufficient electoral votes to win, which is just the fact that there's a path that seems clear, that swing states are in play or seem to be in play is totally huge.
Yeah.
In the same way that we were like trying to argue for Biden to, if at all possible, if he was at all able to like sharpen his message and talk about the future and all this stuff, like Harris is really doing that. Like, Biden kept getting hung up on trying to like prove his record. I did all these things. I should get credit for it. The economy's great. Like it passed gun legislation for the first time in 30 years, all this stuff. Harris is in the perfect position to be able to take all those wins as a given and talk but still come into the campaign as a bit of a change agent, be able to talk in a future focused way without being on the defensive in a way that Joe Biden just never got the hang of and was never able to figure that out. And that's being reflected in kind of all of the speeches that she's been giving so far, is really focusing on how she's going to be the president for the future, how it's not just about her versus Donald Trump. So it's not just like about beating Trump. It's about focusing on a positive like policy agenda that isn't just about like, that doesn't just accomplish one thing at the beginning of November.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think that she's doing in a really clever way is she's taking what was definitely her biggest weakness in the Democratic primary and making it her strength. Now, look, as a leftist, I am absolutely critical of her time as the Attorney General of California. She was adamantly against the legalization of marijuana, which in my mind is just unforgivable.
Yeah, it's just so dumb.
She
so stupid.
She spearheaded a lot of tough on crime initiatives, which disproportionately targeted minority communities. She spearheaded initiatives about like basically cracking down on minority parents who like didn't send their kids to school or some shit. And like, that's all bad, but she's running against a felon. Like she is running against a guy who has been found guilty of felonies. So she's been going out there basically saying, hey, when I was Attorney General, I prosecuted sex predators. I prosecuted cheaters. I prosecuted fraudsters. I know the type. And it's like, that's the type of message that is going to appeal to the normal type voter, to the everyday voter.
Yeah.
Totally. It's like, here we have prosecutor, here we have felon. Who are you going to go for?
Totally. That's the thing though. She's actually able to land both punches on Trump. She's able to land that punch, which is he's a bad dude. He's bad for the country. He's bad for you, like, and all that stuff. And she does that well, which like Biden couldn't get past the fact that he was a liar. And that was like the main thing that Biden was talking about all through the debate. He's like, this guy's lying. And it's like, yeah, dude, everybody knows that. Anybody that's thinking of voting for Trump already knows that. Talk about something that's relevant. So that's so actively, effectively making a case that Trump is bad is one thing, but then also making the case that he's bad for you is another thing that Harris is already doing and doing effectively that Biden never effectively got off the ground. Yeah. Like she was talking about Trump and she was saying that he wants to give tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. She wants to make working families pay for it by stripping away protections from the Affordable Care Act. She said, quote, America has tried these failed economic policies before and we're not going back. Yeah. And like, that's fucking exhilarating.
It's looking like we're not going back might end up being her campaign slogan. Because in her first rally in Wisconsin, she said that, and that became a chant.
Yeah.
Not going back. And I think that's a good slogan to take, because like it implies a lot. It's basically saying, number one, we're not going back to Trump, but number two, we're not going back to these failed trickle-down economic policies that we've tried and tried and tried again, and every single time we do them, we get the same result. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, wages remain stagnant, nothing gets done, and inequality is exacerbated. So the fact that she is moving towards a more economically populist message is also really refreshing. And she hasn't been taking the bait on culture war issues yet, which I think is also really important. All right.
So
now that doesn't mean that on policy you betray those culture war issues. All right.
Yeah.
But don't take the bait on them. And so far, she's remaining economically. She's using the argument of criminal versus prosecutor, but she's also using a message of economic populism. And considering the fact that most of her donations came from small dollar donations in those first 2 days, she's got some legs to stand on. Like, she actually has some legs to stand on to make that argument. And one of the greatest things about this is that Republicans don't know how to fucking attack her. Like,
I know
they're
they haven't, to be fair, it's only been 4 days. Like,
true.
Yeah.
But like, it's so funny. Like, I've seen them attack her by saying, apparently when she was attorney general or before she was attorney general or some shit, she had an affair with some dude. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Your guy is twice divorced and had an affair with a porn star while his wife was pregnant. Do you want to have the affair conversation? Is that really a fucking conversation that you want to have? Like,
seriously.
there have been some people that are calling her the DEI hire, which is just fucking racist.
Yeah,
like, just blatantly racist to the point where there was actually a meeting among congressional Republicans where the leadership said, "Hey, listen, you gotta not be racist or sexist. Like, just don't do it. You're gonna hurt us. People that's not gonna be appealing. Don't do it." Like,
when Kevin McCarthy and Mike Johnson are both like, "Please stop this shit." you gotta realize you're in deep water.
And have you heard what Trump's nickname for her is?
I've heard like a few attempts. I've heard like Crazy Kamala, but I haven't heard what he landed on. What does he seem to have landed on?
It looks like he's landed on Laughing Kamala, which,
oh my God,
that's just pathetic, dude. Come on. This is from the guy that came up with Lion Ted, which just rolls off the tongue so well. Little Marco, which is my personal favorite. Sleepy Joe,
Meatball
which
Ron.
again just rolls off the tongue. Crooked Hillary, again. Yep. It's beautiful, but really, Laughing Kamala, that's what you're settling on? Come on, you've lost
at least
your touch,
go with
buddy.
Like Kamala Puddinfingers or something. Like Ronnie Puddinfingers was like the best one.
Or I don't know, if you want to go with the laughing thing, what about Cackling Kamala? It was right there.
It was right there. He couldn't think of a synonym for laughing. Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, yes, Kamala does have some of these weird quirks and stuff. From what I've seen on like social media, people are into it.
Yeah.
They're like very happy to accept all of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I think we're on this high right now of a huge sigh of relief, a candidate to be potentially excited about who can probably beat Trump.
Who can speak in full sentences.
Yeah, boy, the sentences. And most refreshingly, maybe not most refreshingly, it's so refreshing to have a candidate who's out there, like, doing the job of being a candidate and being energetic. She's going to like campaign event after campaign event. She is like, the last 4 days have been absolutely fever pitch. And that is exactly what she needs to be doing. And it's nice that a VP is like not that hard of a job. And so she's actually able to be out there and like she's, has enough energy to be out there doing these campaign events and really like.
Well, because you remember Joe Biden's campaign strategy in 2020 was basically to hide in a basement and let Trump embarrass himself.
Totally. Which then
And it
that
worked,
became
you know.
Trump's strategy after the debate was like, let me
Yeah.
just stay out, or like at least his campaign trying to like keep Trump out of the limelight, but let me stay out of the limelight and let Biden self-destruct. And that works as long as you have a candidate that will just self-destruct. But if you have a strong candidate, they will fill the silence with good shit. And that's what we're seeing right now. I will say, so Trump's lead pollster, and I don't know how much you can trust a guy named Tony Fabrizio, but he is arguing that this is very much a honeymoon phase about Harris, that we've seen this bump in the polls. She's like rapidly catching up to Trump in terms of favorability. I'm sure she will surpass him if this continues. But we see all this Trump in the, like, he's basically arguing that there's a honeymoon period around Harris, but ultimately the fundamentals of the election are staying the same, where voters are still unhappy about the economy, inflation, crime, border policies, housing, Gaza, Ukraine, all this stuff. And that eventually they will come to the conclusion that Kamala is just another Joe Biden. What do you think of that? What do you think of that argument, Nathan?
So here's what I would say. There are actually very easy responses to all of those.
Yeah.
That Biden was incapable of making because he couldn't finish a sentence, but Kamala absolutely will be able to make. So, so let's look at it in terms of the economy. The economic recession was a clear result from the pandemic. All right. Mm-hmm. It started under Trump. All right. It started while Trump was president. Now, to be fair to Trump, you can say it wasn't his fault. It was a pandemic. Yeah. You can't predict that there's going to be a pandemic. The entire globe was suffering from inflation after the recession. Right.
Yeah.
There was an entire global crisis that we were suffering as a result of it. And a huge portion of inflation was primarily driven by corporate profits. Mm-hmm. And you know what the Democrats did in Congress? What they tried to do? They tried to pass an anti-price gouging bill for fossil fuel companies, and Republicans blocked it. So bring that up, all right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not only do you need to elect Kamala Harris, you need to elect Democrats in Congress so that we can pass anti-price gouging. And honestly, what I think she really needs to do as well is to start arguing for a corporate windfalls tax, which would also actually fight inflation. But at the same time, though, you are seeing that inflation is starting to die down at this point. Yeah. It is definitely not at an acceptable rate. I want to be very clear about that. Like, prices are way too high and people are still suffering because of that. But there is a recovery that is on the way. All right. Mm-hmm. Unemployment is down. The deficit has been reduced, which, will remind you, the deficit was exploded under Trump when he passed that fucking Tax Cuts for the Rich Act.
Yep. Which he plans to renew again.
Which is, again, that is something that Kamala needs to make sure that she is hitting. Like, hit him on those tax cuts. All right. Yeah. Hit him on those tax cuts while also arguing for tax cuts for the middle class. All right. That is something that she should be doing as well. So on the economy, she does have a case to make. On immigration, now, the immigration bill, the bipartisan immigration bill, did not have things that I would want. It basically made it so the president could shut down the border. But the fact of the matter is, it easily fights against the perception that Biden has been this open borders president. Now, he hasn't been as compassionate on immigration as I'd like him to be as a leftist.
Sure.
But, when Trump tries to argue like, you want open borders, Kamala can easily hit him back with, we had a bipartisan border bill that was in Congress that was all set to pass, and then you called up your buddies in Congress, your Republican buddies in Congress, and told them not to pass it because you didn't want to give Biden a win. All right? That shit was on you.
I think the critical part about each one of these things is she also then needs to turn it to the future. Be like, send me to the White House and give me a Democratic Congress, and that border bill is getting passed. We are like helping to address the crisis at the border that Donald Trump is partially responsible for.
Yeah. And on top of that, And I don't know if this is an argument that she would make, but this is just another important point to make about like to once again put to rest the bullshit myth that Biden was for open borders.
Yeah.
The Trump DHS removed 3.5 times as many people per month as the Trump administration did. And on top of that, in terms of apprehensions, when people were apprehended under the Biden administration versus under the Trump administration, in terms of what percentage of people who were apprehended at the border were then released back into the United States, under Trump, 52% of the people that were apprehended were released back into the United States. Under Biden, 49%. So Trump actually released a higher percentage of the people that he apprehended back into the United States than Biden did. Trump released more than Biden did. So again, it's just not true. It is just not true. Biden, in some ways, is more of a hawk on immigration. Now, I don't like that, but like, put that shit to rest. Fine, like put the whole open border shit to rest. And I think that Kamala might actually be able to do that.
Yeah, totally. So I think there's a lot here to be excited about. Certainly, the Democratic Party seems energized. Young people seem energized. People are donating. People are registering. We'll have to keep this energy up. I think one of the big decisions we're going to see over the next few days is Kamala's pick of the VP, which is going to be a super condensed decision process and also a really important decision for her campaign. This will be like the first major strategic choice. And I don't know, it could really it does seem like there are like a bunch of options. There are a bunch of people that are potentially there, and I don't know. We'll see what she ends up coming in with. Do you have any bets on who you think she's gonna pick?
Well, let's look at some of the potential options. All right.
Yeah.
So according to MSNBC, the Biden campaign has requested vetting materials on 5 candidates as of July 23rd. That is North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and I was so excited about this one, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. I've also heard Andy Beshear, who's the governor of Kentucky. I've heard his name brought up. I've also heard JD Pritzker, who's the governor of Illinois. I've heard his name tossed in. But let's look specifically at these 5, all right, and kind of their advantages and disadvantages. I don't know who she's going to pick, but like I kind of have an order of who I think would be best. So first off, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. A potential disadvantage about choosing Roy Cooper is the fact that the lieutenant governor of North Carolina is a Republican, which means that if they choose him, then they get a Republican governor.
And an absolutely fucking crazy Republican, not just like a normal Republican. Mark Robinson is fucking nuts.
As governor, he expanded Medicaid. He also vetoed a trans bathroom bill, which I believe was overridden, but still, Josh Shapiro. So big advantage is the fact that he's the governor of Pennsylvania, and he'll probably secure Pennsylvania. Massive
popular in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but massive disadvantage, which I actually I know that in the debate that we had with Jerry, I brought him up as a possibility. I am retracting that. It should not be him. He is fucking psychotic on the issue of Gaza. Like, psychotic. He straight up referred to campus protesters, like he compared them to the Ku Klux Klan.
Jesus.
Like, that is beyond psychotic. Like, when condemning the University of Pennsylvania president, who, there's that controversial, there's the controversy around her, given hesitancy to condemn anti-Semitism. He actually had the nerve to say, It should not be hard to condemn genocide. You know what? I could not agree more. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be
couldn't
hard
agree
to
more with
condemn.
that.
It should not be hard to condemn genocide. So I now think he would be a terrible pick. You are going to you might guarantee Pennsylvania, but you're going to give up Michigan if you choose him.
Yeah, you're gonna alienate. Yeah, totally.
Uh, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
Advantage to him. The current governor of Arizona is a Democrat, and apparently by law, you do have to choose a senator from the same party anyway, so it wouldn't be giving up a seat. I've heard some people say that they thought it would be giving up a seat. It wouldn't be giving up a seat in the Senate. He is often considered an American hero because, like, he was an astronaut.
Yeah.
Really
He's
cool
also
story.
Yeah, and he also kind of threads the needle that you sometimes thread, Nathan, on being like progressive in a lot of areas, but also like a gun owner, Second Amendment supporter, like still has like reasonable positions on guns, but overall like a supporter, and could kind of like help like quell the racist, sexist fears of some people in the party by being, an older white guy who likes guns. That's like a helpful thing, I think, on the ticket.
Yeah. So like I think he would definitely be a good choice. I think he would definitely help get the Arizona vote. My issue with him is that there are some issues where he is just flat out conservative.
Yeah.
He voted against the PRO Act. I find it really hard to forgive someone who votes against the PRO Act. Like, that's just a staple for Democratic politics is being pro-union. You vote against the PRO Act,
totally.
get the fuck out.
Yeah. Totally. And for anybody that might not be aware, the PRO Act is was a House resolution to protect the right of collective bargaining. So pro-union legislation.
Yeah. Gretchen Whitmer. A lot of people think that Gretchen Whitmer would be a bad idea because they think that two women on the ticket would be too dangerous. Like, people wouldn't, that like a lot of people are saying like, no, you got to have, she needs to choose the whitest of white men she can possibly find.
Yeah, I've seen so many takes that have just been like, okay, can't wait to see how many boring like old white dudes Kamala picks as VP or whatever. It's like, it doesn't have to be that.
My argument there would be, you choose Gretchen Whitmer, you pretty much lock down Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
You're helped with Wisconsin. You might, there's still concerns over Pennsylvania, of course, but
it's not like Josh Shapiro's against you once you, like, he's still going to be in favor of you. He's still going to try to help. Like, there's benefit there anyway.
Yeah. And Pennsylvania in some ways tends to be a little bit more of a bluer state than Michigan and Wisconsin. Like, it was like Biden was polling the worst in it, but honestly, there's a lot of reasons why you might not like Biden, honestly.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know. I think Whitmer would be a decent choice. And then of course, finally you have Tim Walz, which I kind of see nothing but advantages to Tim Walz at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only thing I would say is that he is the governor of a state that is a pretty solidly blue state to begin with, at least in terms of the presidential electoral politics. Mm-hmm. So like, you're not necessarily, by default, you're not being helped in a state that you are really in that much danger of losing. But at the same time, he is a Midwesterner. He sounds very Midwestern. I think that by proximity, he would help you with Wisconsin and Michigan. He is very well spoken. Very well spoken. I think that he would be a fucking pit bull as a vice president. I think and as a vice presidential candidate, I think that he would be a really great attack dog. And also, he has a really fucking good record. I mean, we've talked about it on the pod before, but he managed to get tuition-free college for families making under a certain amount, a school lunch program, banned gay conversion therapy, expanded unions, just like the most effective governor in the country. And also the type of person where I would like, where I look at and I think, well, in a future possibility, like in the possible future after Kamala's presidency, if she does become president, who might I want to see carry on the next legacy of progressive politics? Tim Walz, I think, is the type of guy that I could see myself voting for in a primary. You know, he's the type of guy that I could definitely see myself like really digging in the future. So like so if I were to rank these in terms of who I think would be like the best choices, number 1, Tim Walz, number 2, Gretchen Whitmer, number 3, Mark Kelly, number 4, Roy Cooper, and dead fucking last is Josh Shapiro.
Nice. Well,
don't choose Josh Shapiro. Whatever you do, don't fucking choose Josh Shapiro.
Okay, there's so much to be excited about here. I mean, guys, we got to do this. We got to get her elected. We got to be excited. Get out there, do stuff. It's like there's just no two ways about it. Kamala 2024, Harris 2024. So for our next segment, we are telling you why that's bullshit. So Nathan, why do we do the "Here's Why That's Bullshit" segment?
Well, Michael, every now and then, a claim gets circulated in the media space, in the political space, that's just flat out wrong. That's just complete and utter bullshit. Yeah. And we want to make sure that we give you all the tools to know how to very quickly just slap it down. So the next time that you hear someone repeat it, you can tell them, so here's why that's bullshit. So, Michael, what is bullshit this week?
Okay, so you're hearing it everywhere. Fox News, your crazy uncle. But even on left-wing and liberal and like normal mainstream media sources, you hear this claim. And it is right now the biggest like landing punch that Republicans have on Kamala Harris. And the claim is Harris was Biden's border czar. So the issues at the border are her fault, and we can lay them at her feet. Her failures are the reason why we have a crisis at the border, because she was Biden's border czar and in control of the border.
So here's why that's bullshit.
Yeah. So a couple things. Obviously, one of the challenges about this particular topic is that the real deeper answer is what we've spent literally hours on this show talking about, that the anxiety about immigration is misplaced, that issues at the border are overblown, that the real issues are happening way before people actually get to the border. But the problem with convincing your crazy uncle or convincing someone that Harris is not that bad is that these points are nuanced and complicated, and they take a long time, and your right-leaning family members are not going to want to engage with them. So this is bullshit on its face, because Harris was never and has never been the border czar or in charge of the border at all.
Yeah. The most that she was doing was she was visiting countries that were the countries that we were getting the most influx of immigrants from, to try to address the issues that were pushing people to want to immigrate at their roots.
Yes, exactly.
That's it.
She was on a diplomatic international assignment to go around to multiple countries and try to help them improve their situations to help reduce migration to the border. Full stop. She was just being a vice president. She was not down there controlling the border. So she is not responsible for the border. She has no policy ability to adjust the border. The people who are responsible for our border, even though the claims about it are totally overblown, are the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, not the vice president.
And that's why that's bullshit.
So for our next segment, we are talking about human feces. Yes, on this show, we've decided to dedicate a whole half of the show to talking about poop.
Michael.
Yeah. What?
I understand how you made that mistake, but
Sure.
the segment's actually about JD Vance.
That's what I said.
You said poop. And corporate
you
has
don't-
asked you to find the difference between these two pictures.
I'm so what it could see. This is a total misunderstanding. Nathan comes to me and he says, "Michael, we have to talk about JD Vance," and that's my nickname for my turds. So that's why I was surprised. I was surprised that you came and you said we had to talk about that. But I really need to reset.
Yeah. How embarrassing. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of fun poop facts.
I have a lot of facts about JD Vance, but then I also have a lot of facts about vice presidential candidate JD Vance. So we're breaking down this guy because he's important. All of the fucking sudden, this dude is potentially in one of the more powerful positions in the country. A couple weeks ago at the Republican National Convention, Trump, after much delay, decided to name JD Vance as his vice presidential candidate. And so we got to talk about him. So first off, he's 39 years old. He's a senator from Ohio. He's in his first term, also his first time in elected office. I cannot imagine picking someone that has less than one term on the job to be my vice president. But I've never run for president. What do I know?
Well, so I mean, to be fair, technically, Kamala was first elected to the Senate in 2016, and she was picked to be Joe Biden's vice president in 2020. So she hadn't completed a full term in the Senate. Mind you, she'd also, served as the attorney general, so she had a bunch of other political experience. But,
Fair enough. It's a great point. Great point. You're right. I guess we just have to really give JD Vance a fair shake.
Yeah. So because we're giving him a fair shake, I do just want to assure everybody that we care about facts on this show. And I think that because of that, it is my duty to inform you that he did not fuck a couch.
This is not something that I was expecting to have to clear up.
Apparently, apparently there was some rumor that went viral on the internet saying that his memoir Hillbilly Elegy, he talked about fucking a couch, and that is not in the book.
Yeah, and also, I don't remember that from that book. I would have feel like I
I read it very thoroughly. But I would just like to say that it is false. And I would also like to say what a man chooses to do on the privacy of his own upholstery is his business.
See, that's where you're a libertarian, Nathan, and that's where we disagree. No, that is hilarious because even if that were true, so far from the worst thing this dude has done and believes. So, honestly, if that's your main argument, not a great argument. So, okay, a little bit of background here. You might have heard of JD Vance prior to him becoming a candidate for Senate in Ohio. In 2016, he published his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. It became a bestseller, fairly widely read. Ultimately, it was made into a movie. Basically, it's the story of his growing up in Ohio, in Appalachia, and it's was taken as a bit of a reflection, and a good reflection, or I should say, an accurate reflection of what it is like to grow up in a very poor, blue collar part of the United States at a moment when a lot of coastal elites, quote unquote, were really trying to understand how Trump had risen to power and where the cultural influences that were driving that came into being. As a result, Vance became this kind of somewhat of a interesting character to the media and the left wing kind of in general. He started being on liberal talk shows and networks as kind of a relatively like reasonable voice, but articulate voice for blue collar America. And so, yeah, I mean, so around 2016 and following, he seemed like a pretty reasonable dude. I mean, his book was a classic, like it kind of started and ended as like a classic, like bootstrap, like, hey, you just got to pick yourself up out of poverty. But one of the reasons why it wasn't just shuffled aside is because like he seems to have that background, which is grew up in poverty, mother with addiction issues, passed around from home to home, mainly cared for by a more extended family. Joined the military. He's a veteran. Went to Yale Law School. Graduated law school. Became a venture capitalist. Worked for Peter Thiel, who's one of the founders of PayPal. Became super rich. New York Times bestselling author. Like, this is a fellow that, on the back of his own kind of ambition, kind of clawed his way a bit out of a really tough and bad situation. And so that, I think, lended him a lot of credibility as he was moving kind of through like more mainstream spaces. At the same time, after Trump was elected, Vance was a self-avowed never-Trumper, tweeted about Trump, being an idiot. He said, quote, "My God, what an idiot." Called Trump cultural heroin. He said, quote, "I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place." And in a note to a friend, he wrote, "I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler." And
Okay,
then,
so when the two people
yeah,
that you might be is
Yeah.
between Richard Nixon and Adolf Hitler.
yeah, when Richard Nixon is not that bad,
Yeah, when Nixon is the good part of the spectrum,
yeah,
you got some fucking problems.
yes, exactly, and which led to like a lot of head scratching as Vance started to come around to Trump and his policies during the first Trump administration.
Yeah.
So, he actually ended up voting for Trump in 2020. And in 2021, as he began running for Senate, he said, quote, "I regret being wrong about the guy. I think he was a very good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people, and I think he took a lot of flack. He's the best president of my lifetime."
And here's the
yeah.
thing. Here's how he justified why he was anti-Trump initially. He said, quote, "I allowed myself to focus so much on the stylistic element of Trump, I completely ignored the way in which he substantively offered something very different on foreign policy, on trade, on immigration." So I'd just like to point out, you called him America's Hitler.
Yeah, and thought that was mainly just a stylistic
That's a
choice.
stylistic choice? You
Yeah,
thought he was stylistically Hitler?
Yeah,
Really?
totally.
Are you fucking kidding me? Stylistically, he was Hitler. Look, and the thing that made the thing about him, and look, I'm not necessarily saying that he's America's Hitler, but like the thing that makes him, the thing where you can draw the most parallels on Hitler is immigration. All right,
Yeah.
the way he treats immigration, and you cited that as one of the things that you agreed with him on.
Totally.
So
I mean, ultimately, that take is, I was an asshole the whole time, but I didn't really like Trump, and now I like Trump, and I'm still an asshole.
Yeah.
And
Also-
still wrong on policy.
Also,
yeah.
I got no fucking respect for this guy because
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, that's all bullshit. He very clearly got on board the Trump train because he wanted
Yeah.
to have a political career. All right.
Totally.
And the thing is, Trump even said that. Trump even
Yes.
fucking said that. When he was campaigning for JD Vance during his Senate run in 2022, he straight up said, like, "This guy used to hate me. Now he's kissing my ass because he wants my endorsement." And like, that was in
Yeah.
a pro-Vance rally. I think we might have even talked about it on the pod at the time. All right.
Yeah.
You got no like, this guy is an invertebrate.
Totally.
All right.
He is exclusively seeking power. That has been his thing like that's the main through line of all of like his life story post, like, the military, is basically just seeking more and more influence and power, and with more and more ambition. And with the transition to a super ultra MAGA agenda, which we can talk through, that transformation has been completed. And now he is, you know, totally just sycophantically, supporting Trump, to the point that on the back of being one of the worst, like, strategic picks for Trump, he gets picked as the vice presidential nominee because he kisses his ass just hard enough. See, Trump doesn't like it too hard. He wants to believe that you love it. So it's got to be tender.
Yeah. Well, and there was even some reporting behind the scenes that he actually was very close to choosing Doug Burgum, which, by the way, if he had chosen Doug Burgum, that would have been the prediction of the century on my part.
Yeah, seriously.
Just pointing that out. All right. But apparently, Don Jr. really liked Vance and encouraged him to choose Vance. And also another thing, Carlson really wanted him to choose Vance. And here's something I find really funny. Yeah. One thing that Tucker Carlson said was, quote, he understands what Trump is running on, and unlike the rest of the Republican Party in Washington, agrees with it. Here's the thing. We know that Tucker Carlson doesn't agree with Trump. We have fucking text saying that he hates Trump. Like, Trump is surrounding himself with people that fucking hate him, but are going to, but are pretending publicly to kiss his ass. I feel like that have to pretend to like him. I mean, I guess it makes sense, that's basically his entire marriage, but like, I just can't fucking, it's hilarious when you look at how fucking fake these people are.
Yeah.
And the thing is, beyond just the fact that JD Vance is a fraud, is a spineless fraud, he's also terrible on policy. Like, absolutely terrible on policy. Now,
sure,
he pretends to be an economic populist, and to his credit, he actually did co-sponsor legislation to raise the minimum wage to $11 an hour.
Yeah,
which is not nearly high enough, but like, he's a Republican who is agreeing that we need to raise the minimum wage. Like, that's kind of that is spectacular. He's even expressed a willingness to look at like an even higher minimum wage, like as much as $20 an hour. Like, that's
he's even called for raising taxes on corporations, and has praised the antitrust actions of Biden's FTC, which all good things.
Yeah, but he has also specifically said that what needs to happen in Appalachia is not government aid. People just need to have more willpower.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. The problem is a problem of willpower. Also, he voted against the PRO Act. He voted against the PRO Act.
How can you be a fucking economic populist?
You cannot be an economic populist if you voted against the PRO Act. Also, like, so part of why he said he voted against it was like, one justification was he wants unions to be more like European style or whatnot. But like, one of the big things that he says, and I find this hilarious. He said, quote, I think it's dumb to hand over a lot of power to a union leadership that is aggressively anti-Republican. Hey, dumbass. The reason why unions are anti-Republican is because Republicans do things like voting against the PRO Act.
That's so
You
remarkable.
Fucking idiot.
That's so fucking funny. That's amazing.
You ever thought that maybe unions might be more willing to be Republicans if Republicans actually, I don't know, did stuff for them? If
That's
Republicans
crazy,
weren't
Nathan.
Aggressively anti-union?
Chickens and eggs are totally unrelated. They just happen alongside each other. Yeah. Also, at the same time, Vance has been an ardent defender of Trump's super aggressive tariffs and trade policies, which would be fucking terrible and would exacerbate inflation and be terrible for our economy and for the working class and everybody. So,
yeah,
not good.
Yeah. Also, he's as culturally conservative as they come.
Seriously.
There was a bill to protect IVF in the Senate, and he voted against it. Now, to be fair to him, only two Republicans voted for it, Murkowski and Collins. And what's hilarious is like the Republicans did the classic D-bag move where they were like, well, we're voting against this because there is no real threat to IVF.
Yeah.
And this is just a political ploy for Democrats to cast Republicans as being anti-IVF. So we're going to vote against it, thus proving that we're anti-IVF.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking idiots. But like, that's something that I can't forgive.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
Anybody who is politically against IVF,
yeah,
like seriously, go fuck yourself. You're basically telling me that my daughter shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, people struggle with fertility through no fault of their own. All right. And IVF is a miracle of science. It is a blessing. It is the reason why I was able to have a kid. Like, I was able to have
life-giving process.
It is a life-giving process. So I'm sorry. I have nothing to say to you if you're against IVF.
He's all on the culture war shit, to your point, and like in an interesting way that I haven't seen before, attempts to connect it back to economic populism, which I think ultimately in a lot of ways it is, but is making that he's actually stating these things more explicitly, which I find interesting. I'm curious to see how that will develop. But like, he describes the culture war as a class war, and basically is saying that like progressive rich elites are advancing their economic messages through their cultural messages, and to fight back against that, you have to fight back against their cultural stuff as well. And so it's like he introduced a bill to criminalize gender affirming care for transgender kids, a ban on federal mask mandates, a crackdown on affirmative action policies at colleges and universities, and he's publicly supported a 15-week abortion ban. A national abortion ban. And he does describe some exceptions for rape, incest, and threats to the life of the mother. But like, when asked about whether laws should include these kinds of exceptions, he has in the past answered things like, quote, "Two wrongs don't make a right." So yeah, bad on abortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has an A+ from the Susan B. Anthony, I think, Society, which is like an anti-abortion group. And yeah, he's definitely bad on abortion, and a 15-week national abortion ban would be fucking terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised that Trump chose him. I feel like
totally
he brings literally nothing. Like, he doesn't bring experience. He's from Ohio, which Republicans are already going to win. He is not charismatic whatsoever. Like, I guess the one thing that he does kind of bring is
soft lips for ass kissing.
I was gonna yeah, loyalty to Trump. Like, he said that he basically said that he would have done what Trump had asked Pence to do if he were vice president, which that's something that should scare you. Like, this guy is full authoritarian. He is full anti-democracy. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody that expresses support for what Trump told Pence to do, which was literally to overturn an election, is anti-democracy and is completely like that, has lost any credibility and should never even be considered as a potential candidate to go near any level of power.
Absolutely. Yeah. He said, quote, "If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we needed to have multiple slates of electors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it from there." Which is like literally telling the states, provide us multiple slates of electors, is one of the crimes that Trump is being charged with federally by Jack Smith. Like, because it's not legal to like conspire to defraud with multiple slates of fake electors. He's also expressed admiration for some policies from Hungary's authoritarian leader Viktor Orban. specifically around like shutting down dissent at universities when Orban took control of the universities. He said, quote, on the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities is totally a reasonable thing. I do think that he's made some smart decisions there and we could learn from in the United States.
So anti-free speech.
Yep. He's also encouraged Trump to defy the Supreme Court if the justices prevent him from firing executive branch officials. So this is kind of
Project
directly in
2025.
support of Project 2025 and Schedule F. Yeah. So clearly anti-democracy. He has expressed like support on immigration for deporting 11 million undocumented immigrants, which would be a total catastrophe. He has also accused the Biden administration of allowing fentanyl across the southern border as a deliberate strategy to kill Republican voters. He said, quote, if you wanted to kill a bunch of MAGA voters in the middle of the heartland, how better than to target them and their kids with this deadly fentanyl? It does look intentional. It looks like Joe Biden wants to punish the people who didn't vote for him. Also, about Ukraine, he's a vocal critic of the war in Ukraine and said, quote, I got to be honest with you. I don't really care what happens in Ukraine one way or another.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah. Not great guy.
Not great guy.
Not great
but,
guy.
And to your point, hilariously a bad choice.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so funny how this worked out because they were like, the Trump administration was like, we're definitely going to win. Biden sucks. I'm going to pick JD Vance as a totally fucking arrogant move, despite the fact that he is the first vice presidential candidate since 1980 that didn't provide a bump in polling after being selected. On average, since 2000, vice presidential candidates help bolster polling by 19 points, and he's polling down -6. He's also, while he did win his senatorial race in Ohio, he only won by 6 points when the Republican governor at the top of the ticket won by 25. He significantly underperformed in Ohio when he was elected. He is just a totally stupid, arrogant, silly pick that they get slapped in the face with once Biden dropped out and Harris is now at the top of the ticket because they wasted a key shot for trying to pick up more voters. So fuck yeah.
Also, he thinks America's run by crazy cat ladies, which is just weird. He was on Tucker Carlson, and this was in 2001. But he was on Tucker Carlson, and he said, quote, we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable in their own lives and the choices they've made. And they want the rest of the country miserable too. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. So there are lots of people that don't have children that vote Republican. Why the fuck would you demonize them? This is the problem with Republicans.
Makes no sense.
Republicans love to demonize large swaths of people that might potentially vote for them.
Yeah, for no fucking
reason. Also, You think that corporations are controlled by crazy cat ladies? Most of them are white men.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of oh, well, we need to fight against the culture war because that's how we need to fight in the culture war because that's how we take a stand against corporate oligarchs. Dude, it's literally the opposite. The only reason why corporate oligarchs ever say anything about the culture war is because they want to trick you into thinking that they're on your side. The reason why they ever say they ever participate in Pride Month or Black History Month is because they want you as liberals or whatever to think, oh yeah, we're totally on your side. Meanwhile, we just spent millions of dollars on a super PAC to prevent unions from ever having any power in the country. It's literally backwards. And also, I'd just like to point out, Kamala Harris has a stepdaughter. Non-traditional families do exist. Pete Buttigieg actually has 2 adopted children, and actually, what's kind of sad. And look, I'm no fan of Pete Buttigieg, but what's kind of sad is at the time that Vance made this comment, Buttigieg and his husband were actually had actually hit a massive road bump in their adoption process. So that was kind of a gut punch. Like, so that's just kind of a douchey thing to say. Like they have kids, and AOC, I don't know, maybe she wants kids, maybe she doesn't. I think that she said that she was worried about having kids because of climate change, which, like, I would just like to point out, you're anti-climate change, or I mean, you're
exactly.
anti-fighting against climate change.
Yeah.
JD Vance is anti-fighting against climate change. That is like the most anti-child thing you can do. Like,
exactly. No, Nathan. That's anti-adult, because our kids now will be adults by the time they all get killed by climate change. So
that is true.
Yeah. So JD Vance, not only a stupid pick, but also a terrible pick. So congratulations, Donald Trump. You fucked up again. And now it's time for one of our favorite segments, the D-Bag Award. So Nathan, what is a D-Bag?
Well, Michael, the D-Bag is an award that we like to give out to people that just make hilariously self-defeating arguments, just self-owns, that are just so stupid on their face. They undermine everything that the person was trying to present. And we just got to point at it and laugh at it and say, come look at the freak. And of course, it is named after Alan Dershowitz for that time that he stood in front of Congress and said Donald Trump could not have done anything that rose to the level of impeachment by pressuring a foreign government to aid him in an election, because he believed it was within the nation's best interest for him to win that election.
Oh, the original D-Bag. Nathan, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. I don't think anything could rise up to the D-Bag, the Dershowitz bag himself. So what you got?
Well,
hit me.
We have somebody that I haven't thought about since like probably 2014.
Oh, wow. Throwback.
It is actor Russell Brand.
Oh, God damn it.
Who apparently...
he's just getting worse and worse.
Apparently, this is weird. I feel like... Am I making this up? I feel like in 2016, he was a Bernie supporter.
Yeah. Dude, he was. He's gone like, full right wing. It's like a whole devolution.
How does that happen?
Kind of crazy.
How do you go from like standard liberal to Bernie supporter to fucking just right-wing nutcase?
Yeah, dude. And not only that, but like pushes a bunch of like, just total conspiracy theory garbage, like all this stuff. Yeah, it's real sad.
So he recently posted on Twitter. I'm not fucking calling it X. He recently posted on Twitter a response to Kamala Harris's new position as the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party.
So he wrote, if Kamala Harris is to be the new pick in the bait and switch, find the lady cup and ball trick that we are being offered in lieu of democracy, we already know she's a socially inept and empty instrument of intransigent institutional power, solely offering cutaneous and genetic novelty to a famished pack of secularist devotees, so bewildered that melatonin, sick melatonin, and X chromosome could represent to them some kind of Pyrrhic victory.
Melatonin.
It's so funny when someone tries to be racist but fucks it up.
Yeah, it's like you're too dumb to make a good racist. And melanin. Jesus Christ! Like I love how he's trying to sound so sophisticated, and so like, really, oh, look at me! Look at how smart I am! I know big words such as chromosome, and it's like you fucking mistook melatonin.
Yeah, melatonin is just a hormone. It's a hormone that helps you sleep.
Yeah, with melanin, like,
yeah, what
the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, you did. You tried it. You tried to be racist, but you messed it up, and you're just anti-sleep and women, I guess.
Yes. Well, to put it in another way, your attempts at the utilization of polysyllabic utterances seemed to feign sophistication but have fallen upon deaf ears, because reality has demonstrated that you have the cranial capacity that is as infinitesimally small as a microorganism, and the intellectual abilities of fecal matter from an ursine. In translation, you have a tiny brain and you're dumber than bear shit. And you're also our D-bag.
So congratulations to Russell Brand for attempting to overtake the D-bag himself as this week's D-bag. And now we will end our show, as we usually do, with our highlights. So Nathan, what's your highlight this week?
My highlight this week is that Joe Biden dropped out. like seriously.
Yeah, fuck yeah, brother.
I mean, I've been so stressed about everything, about the world, and I have hope now. I didn't think I would have hope again. I didn't know what hope was, you know? And like, not only do I have, like, maybe Harris won't be great, but like, at least I think there's a good chance she's going to be better than Biden. Mm-hmm. And like, the best case scenario was we would be stuck with Biden for 4 more years, which just kind of sucks. Now the best case scenario could be Kamala Harris, and she's at least going to be better than Biden, and maybe she'll go beyond that. I mean, she's evolved on issues before, so maybe she'll evolve on even more issues.
Yeah.
So I'm totally less stressed out. Much less stressed out.
That's great to hear. That was going to be mine. So I'll do a different one.
What's your highlight, Michael?
My highlight is Bree and I recently joined our local gym, and it has been so pleasant. Like going to the gym, lifting weights. There's like a sauna and like a steam room, so like you just decompress and chill out in like the sauna afterwards. Like feel great. It's just so nice. So yeah, that's been really nice, and it's been good to work out again. I have gotten way weaker than I was when I was in like college, or when we worked out together in high school, Nathan. So definitely trying to get some of that strength back. So that's been fun.
Nice, bro.
Yeah. And thank you to all the amazing people that make this show possible. So thank you to our amazing patrons, Kyle Cheska, Fade Out Scoop, Taylor Bloom, Jerry DeViller, and Tobias Janssen. Thank you to our incredible editor, Kayla, for all they do to make this show possible. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to The Spectrum. And you'll hear from us again next week.